Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Aspect Reacts here on the Aspect Network. I'm one of your hosts, Sean Hussey, and joining me to discuss the newest episode of The Penguin is Alex Batts. Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Very excited for us both to talk about the Penguin this week. So, we're going to go ahead and kick off our episode by discussing our overall thoughts on the seventh episode of The Penguin. So, Sean, what did you think about Top Hat?
Yeah, show continues to be excellent, and it's great that I don't think that's going to stop as we head into next week in the finale. So, penultimate episode this week. Last week I had missed out on a great episode. Obviously, caught up and checked everything out so that we could talk about it this week. I don't know, as I apologize, I didn't listen to your episode yet from
It's
last
fine.
week,
It's
but I
fine.
can't
You
wait
know,
to.
it's okay.
I definitely nailed some predictions, and I don't know if you were
Yeah.
like Sean nailed those predictions.
Yeah, I do believe I,
Um,
I was like, oh, yeah, Sean got this right on the head.
Squid's dead, Vix, falling to
Hmm.
the dark side,
Oh,
and
such a good scene.
um, oh, completely, and more so now, like we're getting those flashback scenes this week and next that
As soon as the
um,
episode opened, I was like, this motherfucker. I was like,
I was like, I know narrative storytelling. I
I mean,
know
like
what
it
they want
totally
to do.
it totally fits, and like I did say that I was like, it would definitely like I could see it
Yeah.
happening.
But I'll
Um,
give you kudos because I definitely was like, this is really important. But seeing a young Oswald Cobblepot is really weird. Like seeing
yeah,
this
dude,
kid
I
playing
think the
the
kid did a
penguin.
great job, but it's
He did a
weird.
great job. No, he was awesome. I mean, the casting in the show is, and which will be one of my main points to talk about this week, like continues to just be excellent and spot on. But
Yeah.
it definitely gave like Kingpin origin stories and Daredevil vibes where I was like, it's just
Yeah,
weird.
dude.
Like we know who this guy's gonna be. He's really evil. Seeing him as
Mhm.
a kid is really, really sad. But no, that actor did great, and it was so
Ryder
cool.
Allen,
He
I
was
believe, is his name.
yes, great job. That's shout out writer. Yeah, good for yeah. No, that
I
was
paid
great.
attention in the inside the episode thing. I was
I
like,
was
"What
gonna
is?"
say I'm really glad that they like let him talk.
Oh
I'm
yeah, that
glad
was
he got some talking
awesome.
head time.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like I've seen this guy in some other stuff, but I'm not gonna Google it right now to find out. But he's probably played some kid versions of some characters and other things before.
Probably.
Um, but no, I mean it's the beginning of the end, and
Mhm.
I'm still I go back and forth every week where like half the episode I'm like, oh man, Oz is fighting his way to be the kingpin of Gotham. And the other half of the episode I go, man, Oz is really shooting himself in the foot every time he's about to be the king of Gotham. And like I don't know, I can't remember the timeline because it's been a couple of weeks. Did
Mhm.
you talk about some of the recent rumors about like Sophia
Sophia,
potentially having a big
yeah,
role
I
in the
I did
Penguin?
talk about that last week in the
Okay,
future casting because I was talking about essentially what you were just saying about like Oz
yeah.
being the kingpin of Gotham and like if that's happening, which I am still very confident that that's how the show's ending.
No, I'm with you. I'm with
But
you.
like the Sophia of it all, like because I did mention that those rumors have been going around that she'll have a heavy role in the Batman Part Two or a substantial role. So yeah, I don't know what to make about that. Those are rumors for now, so it's
Yeah.
not,
We could
you
talk
know,
about it in the speculation part because
yeah.
there's a lot to talk about with her. I wanna like make my sort of lead focal point of this episode shouting out Deirdre O'Connell, who plays
Mhm.
his mother,
Yes.
because she kicked ass this
Oh,
episode. It was
fantastic,
so
dude.
good.
Yeah, that back and
Um,
forth is top
yeah.
notch.
Just what an incredible performance and incredible performances we've talked about all around, and she's been great all season, but this was definitely an incredible episode to highlight her, and she's had a substantial career. And it's funny because I know that there was a lot of press this week or like interviews that had come out with her because I saw a lot of headlines about how like she played the Arkham
Dude,
games,
yeah, I saw that,
which
and I
is
was like,
so
"That's" she's
cool.
like, "I even had to buy the DLC to get all the achievements." Like, hell yeah, dude, that's
Like, that's
awesome.
amazing. So clearly they were like ramping up for this episode and what's to come, and obviously there's going to be some more of that. And I can't find it right now, but whoever they got to play the younger version of her was
Also,
also really good.
yeah, and did a fantastic job of carrying those mannerisms.
Oh,
The entire younger cast did a great I mean, I guess it's just her and Oz, right? But,
well,
like,
hey, we've got
it's just them. We don't
Falcone
see.
come, well, like in other flashbacks we've had
Okay,
Falcone.
yeah,
It's
Falcone,
amazing.
that's true. Um, but yeah, like them. they did such a good job of really feeling like the same people, just younger, um, which is always a really tricky thing to pull off, I think, because
Yeah.
it's a very like obvious like narrative dissonance that you have there, where you're like, this is a different person that I'm like a literally different person, being the same character, and I think that they pulled it off really, really well in this.
Yeah. No, I mean, casting continues to be top notch, and I think it just goes to show the obvious like care and dedication that goes into like excellent television and being able to, you know, work on that and have that shine through at every level from top to bottom. But what were some of your kind of overall thoughts? I mean, there's still a lot to get into, but I definitely wanted to kind of kick that off as our starting point.
Yeah, again, like you said at the top, just excellent television show. Just continues to be fantastic. I'm glued to the screen the whole time. And again, we've said it like every week. At least I know I have for sure. The fact that I like we'll get into the episode, and I don't know, like aside from the opening flashback part of this episode, we're like 3 minutes into present day, right? And it's like most of the scenes that are in the like next week on the Penguin episode, right? Like
Yeah.
most of those things have already happened. And so I'm like, oh, we have like the entire episode of stuff where like I just don't really know where this is going to go. Um, and so keeping that level of like suspense and intrigue and like engagement with the audience, is just something that I'm continuously impressed by with this show, and that they just keep doing it. They also like the presentation of Gotham continues to be incredible. Like we saw, I loved seeing Gotham, in the flashback, and then also as how Gotham is highlighted in present day too. It's just I'm a huge fan of the city itself and like it being as much of a character, and this show continues to do that and show that in really interesting ways, I think. And so getting to see that is a big plus in my book. And yeah, it's I also we'll talk about it in the favorite moments, but the fact that Oz in the present says that like the city took his brothers and like what that means to him, and then also like thinking about the city as this kind of like prescient thing that can take people, is a really interesting angle too. Even though that's not exactly the case, but we'll get
Oh, yeah,
into
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's fun.
But yeah, just all of that stuff is really strong. The production value, like it goes without saying, is just incredible. Like the show continues to look, sound, like it's just fantastic stuff all across the board. Um, and yeah, it's done a really good job of maintaining that visual language from the Batman while still being distinct and very different feel. I do love how much they continue the like harsh fall off in focus a lot of the time. Like, well, you'll get the super blurry and out of focus edges around the frame. I think that's a really important thing for the aesthetic, and they maintain that. But then also just keep it feeling fresh in a bunch of different types. Like we see Gotham in the daytime a lot in this show, obviously, and so it's cool to see how they've done that and kind of constructed things in that way. But yeah, just overall, it just continues to be great stuff. A lot happens in this episode too, and it's also
Yeah.
like borderline bombastic with an explicitly bombastic thing in there, also. But like it's really the like m- most actiony kind of, aside from that first like, God, was that even in the first episode? No, it had to be this. I can't remember if it was the first or second week when they did the like mini car chase for a second. Um,
Oh, yeah.
but like besides
I think
that,
that
I
was
feel like,
episode 2.
yeah, I feel like this is the most like
Yeah.
actiony that it gets, right? Um,
Looks like we're about to get a lot more of it next week, by the way, too, which
yeah,
is gonna be awesome.
that dude, the trailer for next week looks insane. I was
Yeah,
like, there's so many things that are my main thing whenever I'm watching those. I'm trying to like pick out like how many different locations are they showing, like how many
sure.
different, because then they like, have to be different scenes, right? And so I'm like, oh god, and there were so many that we'll talk about it later, but like insane. Yeah, but just overall, it's a continues to be a fantastic show. Not that I can't believe that they've pulled off it being just like a fantastic episode week after week after week, but also like, damn, I kind of can't believe they pulled off it being like a bit like a truly fantastic show, just like all the way through. And I also do, ironically, considering I just was like, I don't remember if this happened in the first week or second week. One of the things that I'd seen someone mention about the show, it was someone who had seen advanced reviews for it, and they had quoted something where it was all the episode titles listed out for the season, and they're like, say what you will about, shows or whatever, but the fact that I can see these episode titles and remember exactly what happens in each episode, I can be like, oh, that's the episode where this thing happened, like, is a real testament to it being a strong season. And like, that's not the case for a lot of shows that come out
Mm.
now. And I think that is a really big thing that this season of television has done well, and the fact that like each episode feels obviously part of the larger whole, but like very much like, oh, this is the episode where, whatever thing happens, and it's a big deal because of this. And so I think it's really great that they've maintained that through the season.
No, absolutely. And I know there's been some weird criticism lately because of everybody wanting to work with Greg Fraser again on like the Batman 2 and Dune and figure out their shooting schedules. That there's been a lot of like, maybe criticism's a strong word, but certainly a lot of critique of people being like, we really need Greg Fraser back because the Penguin doesn't look good.
Yeah, I
And
have
I
seen
was
that,
like,
and I'm like, what show are you watching, dude? It
yeah,
looks
like, what are you
fantastic.
talking about? They were like, it
I
looks
will
pretty
say
good for TV. And I was like, it
it
looks
looks
really
good.
good for TV and it looks pretty good for like
Dude, it
feature
looks
film
it,
level.
it looks better than a lot of movies that come out now. Like,
Yeah.
I will say I am definitely in the camp that like if he has to pick one, I would rather have Greg Fraser on the Batman Part 2
Yeah,
than
that's fair.
Messiah.
But it's not like I just the idea that he like we're just like desperately
Lacking
missing
because we don't
this
have him
like
is
yeah.
ridiculous. Oh,
Um
another thing that I want to
yeah,
hit that's more of an overall note before we get into specifics, the use, which I believe you had mentioned this in one of the earlier weeks, the fact that Mickey Giacchino, um,
Mick, yeah.
Mick, is did the score for this, who is Michael
Michael
Giacchino's
Giacchino.
son. Yeah. Um, and the use of motifs throughout the series that are like repeated and like kind of slight variations on similar things that we got in the Batman has been outstanding. Like
Yeah.
when young Oz is investigating or like looking for his brothers in the subway, like you get hints of some of the motif of like Batman investigating stuff or like uncovering clues. Like there's similar tones there, and like that's just happened throughout the season with different moments and things. And so that has just been it's been incredible.
Yeah. No, that has been really great and uh yeah, no, very proud of that relationship and uh maybe didn't get to meet Michael this week and that was pretty cool. So,
Yeah, that is also
not
really
Mick,
cool.
but Michael Giacchino, yeah.
Yeah,
But anyway, yeah, music's been great, score's been good.
yeah.
Um trying to think if there's I mean there's a lot of specifics. But I think kind of generally for overall, I think we've hit kind of most of what we wanted to. And so we'll take a quick break and then we come back. We'll discuss all of the details and our favorite moments from this week's episode. We'll be right back.
Hey, Aspect listener, I'm Kate.
And I'm Alex, enjoying this show here on the Aspect Network.
Then check out Bending the Narrative.
We're your one-stop shop for all things Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Each week, we break down an episode from the series and discuss our favorite moments, with a particular focus on the characters and narrative threads that tie the series together.
In addition to discussing the original series, we're also tackling things from The Legend of Korra to the novels and the comics as well.
Now join us as we travel into the world of Team Avatar and discuss one of the greatest animated series of all time on Bending the Narrative here on the Aspect Network.
Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the show. Before the break, we discussed our overall thoughts on episode 7 of The Penguin. Now we want to dive into some of our favorite moments from tonight's show. Alex, where do you want to start?
So I'll forego the flashback stuff because I'm sure that is one of your top things you'll want to talk about. No, but one of my favorite moments is definitely the confrontation between whenever Sal gets Penguin back into the lair, the underground, his hideout where they're manufacturing Bliss and all of that, and just that entire sequence. One, the like back and forth between Oz and Sal throughout the episode, I thought was really good, and then like getting that confrontation, everything kind of boiling to a head, and the fact that I like how much of an impact it being on Oz's home turf has in that, because like as it should. And so the fact that that is what allows him to kind of get the upper hand and end up defeating Sal. And so it's his crew and his people that are like, hey, we're gonna do well. I mean, I'll get to it.
All right.
He
I have
wouldn't have
thought.
been in that final situation if not for the fact that his people were like, "Hey, we're still gonna like step
No,
up."
I know. Just the idea of him getting Sal is something that we'll talk more about for sure.
I
But
mean, I
I
think that he
definitely have
still
thoughts
like
on that.
would have gotten him anyways, but as I'm about to get
Well, here, I'll
into,
let you talk about it. Sorry,
but
and then
like
I'll
the
share.
fact that his people are like, "Hey, we're gonna like we're gonna mess these guys up. Like they're in our home right now and like trying to take you out. Like we're not gonna stand for that." And so that happens. Shit hits the fan, of course, and then we get Sal and Oz fighting in the like train car. And then Sal just has a heart attack, which I also loved. I thought this was super. It was a great. Clancy Brown talks about it in the end of the like the inside the episode thing. He's like, I feel like this is pretty much the like perfect ending for him, and like yeah, it fits really perfectly, honestly. But then even more so for like from Sal's angle, as far as that being fitting for his character, it also does a lot in the fact that it robs Oz of this moment of this like victory. Like he wins, but he's really pissed about it and he's angry because he's not the one who did it. Like he beats Sal, but Sal beat himself really. Like he just has a heart attack and dies. Like he like and I love the like just the performance from Colin there when he's standing over Sal and he's like at first whenever he's like realizing what's happening and he's like, come on, like still fight me. And then he's like, are you kidding me? Like this is what's happening, and he's like, no, like look at me, like I beat you, I did this. And like he can say that all he wants, but like that's not entirely what happened. And so I love the way that that plays with Oz and his psychology. And then I knew he was going to shoot the body too. He was like standing over there and I was like, oh, he's definitely shooting this dude like a couple of times, and he just unloads the clip into him, and then takes the other ring. Bro's collecting rings like they're infinity stones.
Dude, I had that exact thought during the episode. I'm
As soon
so
as he
glad you
like
said
took
it
the
like
ring and
that.
like put it on, I was like, "Oh, bro's putting the Infinity Gauntlet together." like,
I love that that is a zeitgeist thing now. Like
yeah, it's
that is just
dude,
like
it's
if you were
insane.
anyone like collecting blank like Infinity Stones is like
Everyone
just
knows,
out
dude.
there.
Everyone, can you imagine like going back? I don't remember when that story first came out, but like going to a comic reader like when those issues came out and be like, "Hey, this is gonna be like a common phrase in like 30 years that everyone will know," is just bonkers. Um, but yeah, I thought that moment was awesome. Again, it's like the most actiony, but I like that it's not like, I mean, it's too like they're not like super old dudes. I
They're
mean,
old. They're old
Sal
dudes.
isn't
They're older dudes.
like Sal's not young, and then you have Oz, who's obviously not the most like physically capable. Like, and so I think it is still a really like interesting fight between the two of them until Sal just keels over. Dude, there was multiple times in this episode where I thought that they were going to give Oz an eye injury that leads to him having the monocle. Like I thought when Sal pushed his head through the window and like the glass broke, I was like, oh, his eyes gonna be fucked up. And then after the like bomb goes off later, which we'll talk about, like when he's laying on the rubble and like part of his like his face is on a like thing, and I was like, oh, now he's like got his eye messed up, so he like needs, which is not what happened in either case.
I don't know if we're gonna get the monocle,
Yeah,
but
I
I
don't
love
either.
I
I'm not confident about it, but I've like seen people talk about it and be like, oh, I really want to see him with this, and I'm like, yeah, we'll see. Um, he does have the classic like fur coat on now a lot of the time, which is cool. Also, I think it's hilarious that young Oz was wearing the purple shirt
yeah,
in one of the scenes. That was nice.
good costume design.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But yeah, I really liked that whole sequence that takes place in the hideout underneath Gotham and the back and forth between Sal and Oz getting the upper hand there, but not in the way that he really wanted and not in a way that's necessarily satisfying to him. Like he still comes out on top, but he's kind of pissed about it still. And I thought that the way that that was played was really great.
Yeah, no, I had thoughts and then you provided an
Said them.
interesting perspective on it and I was
Oh,
like, all
okay.
right. No, I was just like, all right, I hear you.
You
Like
didn't like the way that he
I,
died.
no, I don't even think I didn't like it, right? Like I think that I was just thinking back to a lot of what I've been saying, which is not a criticism of the show. It is just like an inherent choice of how they're treating this character, which I really enjoy. Of like, he can't quite win the way he wants to.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think that thinking back on it after you said it again, like he was really pissed off that that's how it happened.
Yeah,
You know, like that's
Bro
not
was
how I
mad.
read the scene at first of like, but upon kind of listening to you talk about it, it's like, okay, no, I see where that version of it was, and that was what the intention was, and it's cool. Like, we'll talk more about it too. But I think it's why I've always been super, questioning of Oz's ability to end up on top, is that like when things like this keep happening to him, some of the times it's just luck.
Yeah.
I'm not going to keep name dropping people because I did that last segment, but there was somebody else that I met this past week or got to listen to speak who's pretty famous in the industry. And he had mentioned that like one of his quotes of the week was like, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Mm,
And I thought that was cool. And
that
also
is a
just
cool
like
quote.
feels very applicable to
Oz.
some of what's going on with
Yeah.
Oz right now.
I mean, yeah, like he definitely got mad lucky with the fact that Sal just was not healthy.
Sal would have killed him. I just want to be clear about that. Like you mentioned, you're like, I think you would have gotten the upper hand. I do not. I do not think that Oz with his bum leg and stout body was going to beat however tall Clancy Brown is, but very tall and very muscular.
I think that Oz would have found something in the car that would have been like, I don't think he would have won cleanly, but I think that he would have won.
We'll never know.
Yeah,
He had
Sal has a heart attack.
No, that was a great element. I could talk a little about the flashbacks for sure. I think we've hit most of the highlights, but outside of, watching that old movie with his mother, which was really
Top
cool.
Hat.
And that's obviously, it's a great, classic example of bringing everything together. I'm really intrigued by this trope that seems to exist in modern comic book media / other media, and I'm just trying to think of any other example than one, but I only have one of like childhood origin stories
So
based on what they were
WandaVision.
watching as TV, which is like WandaVision. But I do feel like I've seen that happen in some other things. I don't dislike it. I think it's cool. I think it's a great way to tie those elements
Batman the
together.
animated
But,
series, technically. They're great.
it's just, I love to like the subtle things that the show has done where it gets really meta, where it's like they had TikTok in that one episode that we forgot to talk about, and they were like, what movie did they go see? And you're like, Beetlejuice, and you're like, oh my god,
Yeah,
this
that
is
was
not like
that took me out. I can't
this
lie.
is what
I know that it's
happens
like
when
accurate, but I was like,
accurate,
oh,
yeah.
I did not like that. Admittedly.
Yeah, I mean that's what happens when you like have to age your characters up with time, right?
Yeah.
It's something that they talk a lot about, of like, not that we need to dive into this discussion this week because you're also a big X-Men guy, but like people talk a lot about like the farther we push away from World War II, do we need to replace Magneto being like a victim of World War II, which like
and
it's
absolutely
not a conversation for yeah, which I agree is not the point, but like
Yeah. I mean,
when
it's the whole reason that
yeah,
in comic books they don't date anything anymore. Like they don't, like they literally have, like it's straight up a rule with Marvel editorial where like you do not mention years in main continuity now, like because that
2099.
right, like you just straight up don't, like, because there are so many characters, like like Colossus is so tied to like the Cold War and like Soviet Russia, and like the further you get, it's a whole thing where like comics have now in the last like couple decades realized like, oh, this is a bit of a problem because the sliding time scale just doesn't ever it just doesn't make sense. Like
but I appreciate the way that they did it here, of like those
well, and I
like,
think that
oh
it
my
can
God,
work
Beetlejuice.
in these in the adaptation realm, because it's not like this is a thing where like the Batman epic crime saga is not going to be going on for like 30 years, right? Like we're not going
I
to
think they've abandoned that name, by the way.
I don't think that Matt Reeves has, for the record. I guarantee
It's different. You can check while I talk about more flashback stuff, but I know for a fact that the Twitter bio of the Penguin has like the universe called it, but it doesn't. I think they took out the epic part. I think it's just called the Batman Crime Universe, which is way better than Epic Crime Universe.
HBO original series #The Penguin, the next chapter in the Batman saga from Matt Reeves is streaming on Stream on Max.
And even that feels different from what I feel like I read at one point. Is that at the Batman?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because they rebranded it for Penguin,
The
but they didn't
Penguin.
change
Yeah.
the app.
Because they did the like Thursday, October 31st, which banger.
Yeah, banger. Also, happy Halloween, everybody.
Yeah.
Belated. Um,
I hope they
but no,
drop that as the name because it's not great.
no, he speaks for him. But no, I mean the flashbacks were great. I mean, obviously we haven't really talked much about like the actual like revelation of what happened to Oz's brothers, um, which is sad and pretty twisted.
Yeah.
Um, I
I
don't know what is somebody who like didn't want to see the flashbacks. Where does this sit with you now that we've gotten them?
so it's not necessarily that I didn't. Oh, I kind of didn't want to see them,
Yeah, you said that.
but they were really good. First off, we'll say that like it's a good
Pretend to be
show.
shocked.
They did them well. Um, it's one of those things where I think that the way that they decided to play this situation out fits, like it checks all of the boxes narratively that it should and like emotionally that it should. um and it's just one, makes sense to like open the episode with it, and seeing that all play out, as we already said, all of the actors did a fantastic job. Seeing Gotham even at this point is great. And yeah, just the exact circumstances of his brother's deaths. I think that they really hit it on the head when they're in the inside the episode part, where it's not that he explicitly murders his brothers, it's that he implicitly does not do anything to stop it. Because like it
Right.
definitely was not his intent to kill them by closing that door. Like he was just impulsive and pissed. And they also drew the comparison of like in the season premiere when he impulsively kills Alberto because he gets mad and he feels disrespected, and so he's like screw you and shoots him 5 times, right? Like, and so it's the same thing, which it's this thing where he feels disrespected and like they're looking down on him and making fun of him or taking advantage of him or whatever. That's how he reads the situation. He gets mad and acts like a kid also, and like slams the door on them, right? He's definitely not thinking about the fact like, oh, I'm closing this door, it's raining, it'll potentially flood and they're going to drown. Like that's not what's happening in the moment. But it definitely does become a thing later on where like as he's at home and he's looking out and he's seeing how much it's raining, and like he knows where his brothers are, or at least where they were, and they're not home, like, and he does nothing to try to like be like, hey, this is where they are, like might want to go check on them, like we should do something. Like that doesn't happen because he's getting what he's always wanted, which is his mother's full attention, just the life with him and his mom, and getting all of that affection and like not having to worry about his brothers. And so he doesn't do anything to stop their deaths at all. Like he facilitates it partially unintentionally, partially intentionally, depending on how you want to like read that. But then, yeah, definitely like does not do anything to stop it. And then also, obviously, never comes clean about that and just kind of like keeps
Yeah.
like, there's no like, obviously, his mom doesn't know about that. And he just keeps that inside his whole life, right? And internalizes that. And then from then uses the like breakdown of his mother and her being like, you need to give me the life I deserve. And him like, compounding those two things to like, okay, like, which I feel like he was already on the like wants to do everything that he can to give his mother the life
Right.
that he thinks she deserves, but then like very much like that becomes his like sole focus. And then also you throw on top of that the fact that he's like, oh man, me like what it would be like involuntarily like murdering my brother is also like made things way worse for her too, so like I gotta work extra hard to like do this. It's this like
Right.
compounding effect. So yeah, I think that all like it's awful and horrible, but it was done incredibly well. I also very much appreciate the fact like how they showed slash did not show the drowning, like where you just see
Mm.
the water like coming out of the door and increasing heights, I think, and then also just the silence at the end. Very tasteful, as tasteful as you can do child murder, I would venture to say.
Mm.
like they're 10 and 15; those are kids. So
Yeah.
I think that's really, I like the restraint of like not having a shot in the tunnel of them like gasping for air at the last. Like it would have been really easy to do that, and I'm glad that they didn't, and they showed restraint there. But yeah, what did you think about the whole murder of his two brothers?
No, I think you hit a lot of a lot of the best points for it. So I think I'll leave it there. But I did want to flag or just discuss like we get to see Rex,
Yes.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Which, dude, who is that actor? I don't know if you know
I
off the top of
know.
your, but I
Yeah,
know
no,
him. I'm like, dude, I've
I
seen you in so
know.
many
I
things.
I know. I should do some digging really quickly while I'm trying to talk about this. But I thought it was cool that he,
We
of
got to see the
course,
gold car.
yeah, the gold car, which was great. And like I think what's fun about this episode, whether it was intentional or not, like is sort of built on the idea that like Rex was just kind of a street pusher in the way that I don't know, like obviously a bit of a higher status than somebody like Squid, right? But like maybe
But he's not
comparable
like
to like
all that. Yeah.
right. And so like the way that Oz idolizes him is I think really interesting and really fun. Um and really kind of plays into this idea of how Oz has idolized these crime guys and these crime lords and sort of what he wants to be in this image of like how he views somebody like Rex versus I think how Rex is portrayed. And um I think it was relatively new information that um like they were paying off debts that his father like owed him for whatever reason,
Yeah.
which I thought was really interesting. But overall, like I thought the flashbacks were really solid, and being able to kind of tackle on those elements was really good. The IMDb does not have this guy, and I'm trying to find him.
Of course.
But I do want if I'd love to point you in the direction while I still look for it because it's going to bother me. You got some payoff to your red flashy lights and some Julian Rush stuff this
Yeah.
week.
I knew I was
Um,
gonna use those again.
and I still have thoughts on their relationship, but I will let you
Yeah, I don't know
start.
what to think about their relationship, but
Well, because I didn't get to talk about last week, so you go on this
right.
week, and then the flashy lights, and then we'll circle back to it.
Yeah, so we get more of that because Sophia has Oz's mom, and the like we kind of talked about it very briefly earlier, but like the kind of showdown between Sophia and I'm blanking on Oz's mom's name. 'Cause I feel like they've definitely said it.
Oz's ma,
Yeah.
that's her name.
Yeah, because he just says Ma all the time. Francis
There you
Cobb.
go. Great job.
But yeah, like the back and forth between the two of them was just unreal. It was incredible, and kind of the like Francis cutting through all of Sophia's fluff and kind of like really knowing, like not being phased by where she is. And like I love like Sophia noticing her like tremors. She's like, "Oh, are you nervous?" And it's like, "No, that's not what this is at all." Like she's not intimidating by being in this situation. And her like just that back and forth was so good. It just a masterclass in acting from the both of them, and kind of also the like evolution of them like sizing each other up and like understanding what the situation is and kind of how that's played out, um, was fantastic. And then of course you get like the back and forth between the two of them, but then also you have Frances having eventually one of her episodes and like Sophia kind of like realizing this and like getting somewhat of an understanding of like her condition and like realizing there's a lot more to it. And that's how like Julian Rush gets pulled back in and she's like, "Hey, I need your help with something actually." And so that's when he comes in and we see only briefly him talking to Frances more and like using the red lights as a like some form of like hypnosis. I don't know if I want to call it like hypnosis necessarily, but I feel like that's kind of what it's like leaning to hypnosis, some kind of therapy. Calling it therapy feels like a little bit charitable for what he's probably doing. Like, but like using it in some regard to get information or to further their means. So very proud of the fact that I was like, these lights are coming back for sure. Like, there's no way they're not. And they did, albeit briefly, but they did show up again
Yeah.
as he's trying to get information, which he definitely does, because where they end up at the end of the episode, and then we see that location again at the very, very end of the episode in the flashback. So he does get some information there. But yeah, I thought all of the stuff with Francis, with Sophia, and Francis with Julian, was super interesting.
Yeah. No, that was all really solid. And again, I think a lot of my thoughts as it relates to all of that will come with the sort of speculation as we move forward, because I have a lot of thoughts on the finale and kind of where I think it's going to go. I did find out, by the way, that this guy's name is Louis. I'm gonna murder this, but I think it's Canchelmy, but it's spelled like cancel me. Cancel me. I don't know, but he was in Killers of the Flower Moon, which is probably where we know him from.
Yeah, that makes a lot
He's
of
been
sense.
in a few other things we've seen, but I think apparently he was in the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I don't know who he played in those movies, but
Interesting.
I'll find out. We keep talking about it because this is what we do on a podcast. This is what podcasts are for. I kind of feel like he played like the man in the black hat, but I don't think that that's right. Oh, he is the man in the black suit from the. Oh, hold on, he's only credited on IMDb for the second one though. I don't know. Anyway, maybe he's uncredited in the first one because that guy barely shows up in that movie. Anyway, we figured it out. We did it. Hooray. Yeah. But no, I mean, Sophia and Julian's relationship got a lot more complicated last week. But also to some degree, for what it's worth, like she's just using him. So I think it just kind of leads back into like there's a purpose there and a use, but outside of that, like there's not much more to it. I assume he will be still kicking around, and we will see hopefully more of what they're trying to set up with these lights and this rehabilitation. And I have a lot of theories as to just had a crazy theory pop into my head. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, but then I'm like, you're probably gonna mention it in the speculation.
We have so much to talk about, so let me just throw this. Like, I don't know. We mentioned a little bit just that there's rumors that Sophia is going to have a big part in the Batman 2, and we'll talk a lot more about that. But I do want to spend our speculation on segment mostly on the finale. But like, I don't know. Is there a world that maybe she's not the crime boss, but she somehow weasels her way into like taking over Arkham?
I did also have that exact thought. Yeah.
And like this idea that like as we're building this out, like she like brings Julian back into it, and it's like a rehabilitation method. I wonder if like he could be used as a bit of a substitution for Hugo Strange. I know you mentioned the Mad Hatter previously, and you've mentioned Calendar Man, and there's like a lot of things to lean into.
I've also seen a couple people talk about the Hugo Strange.
I'd like just like a straight Hugo Strange, but not like
I'd be
straight, actually, just like a straight adaptation of Hugo Strange.
Yeah, I would be a little bit bummed if this was like this universe's version of Hugo Strange, because Hugo Strange is, I think, one of the most underrated Batman villains. So I would like to see just Hugo Strange. But yeah, I do think that it's not out of the realm of possibility to see her in an authoritative role in Arkham somehow.
Yeah,
with him also returning.
Yeah. And just like her scenes with Gia this episode.
That's the next thing I was going to bring up, actually, which also, by the way, I'm assuming you also watched the Inside the Episode thing, but the fact that they used the same layout of Arkham for
awesome.
That whole is incredible stuff. Like, that's real good. That scene was so messed up and sad. It's just,
especially when like we didn't know when we watched that episode, but then we came back the following week and we're like, oh, she like in the comics like does end up taking over the family at some point.
Yeah, which I also still, I'm gonna Google this again because I literally have never seen that before, ever. and like
Oh,
I had no
but I thought you had
reference.
mentioned it.
No, someone else, like there was a post that had
Hmm.
um but like I had not seen anything. Like I have no recollection of that in the comics really.
Hmm. This is what podcasts are for.
And I'm doing, yeah, there's like, I mean, all the things that pop up are just like her wiki for the Batman.
No, I know. Weird.
Like I feel like it's going to be one of those situations where like have you seen it as um a trend where like people will just make posts and like say like in the comics, and like it's just not shit that happens in the comics, but like everyone online believes it because most of the people don't read the comics, and
Yeah.
they're like, okay, and like you can just say whatever and just be like in the comics, and people are like, oh really? um yeah, I'm getting nothing for her as an actual comic book
I
character.
don't know.
Like I don't.
Yeah. Well,
And I could just be blanking, but
I mean, Google's a powerful thing, so probably not. Anyway, either way, it would be interesting to see if like she were to come into power at Arkham, or I don't know, is there a world where she does take like escape with Gia or like whatever? There's a lot of speculation to be had there for sure.
yeah,
Um,
that scene was sad though. Her just
yeah,
essentially creating another her, very
yeah,
and her realizing that and feeling very not physically okay. Which, you know, rightfully so. Um, there was that. What were the other big parts of the episode? Oh, the final thing. What did you think about
oh,
the final gift
yeah.
that
I mean, that was I mean, it was clear what they were doing. I was like,
Oh,
that's cool.
100%. I was like, "Oh, this
And
is bomb."
then
Especially when the dude gets out and runs. I was like, "Oz, how are you this dumb, actually?"
yeah, like
Like,
there's a
it's
bomb in that car, man.
yeah, dude.
Now,
Like,
I would have like I also would have been like if it was actually his mother, I would have been like, this is interesting. But I also was
yeah,
like, it's probably a
it's
bomb.
definitely like, come on.
Um,
How is it anything other than a bomb?
well, this is a good point because I wasn't gonna bring it up directly through the bomb, but I want to talk about it before we moved on to speculation. But like this is a really minor nitpick. I'm a little tired of the like, we figured it out, it's all destroyed, we figured it out, it's all destroyed, we figured it out, it's all destroyed.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like this is like this. It is at least the second, if not the third time now that it feels like Bliss has like risen and been destroyed, and then all of a sudden they're like, "We've got it again." And I obviously wasn't here last week, but I definitely was a little caught off by the opening of episode 6
Mhm.
with this idea of like monologuing over like a passage of time where I was like, oh, it's like some shit has happened and we've like skipped a little bit of time. Not a ton of time because I know we're on time tracking
Mhm.
for this show, but like I don't know. I was totally cool with the fact that like they were able to rebuild the operation from the two plants that survived from the truck and the, whatever. But like clearly that bomb destroyed a lot of things. So like I
Everything,
don't
the
think there's
entire
an operation
operation.
anymore. And
Which,
so I guess we will wait and see. But like if Bliss continues to be like a thing again, I think I will look back upon rewatch and just be like, you were really taking us on a roller coaster ride here for like buying along to this idea of like starting and stopping and restarting and moving and transferring this operation. This is a real it's a really really minor nitpick because like the concept of like it's all collapsed and he has to like rise out of the ashes and like now has to go like face this head on is awesome, you know.
yeah.
And I think these are the parts of the show that you're not supposed to be nitpicking or like thinking about. But I definitely was like, if we come back in the finale next week and Penguin's the kingpin, and all of a sudden Bliss is back like up and running all good, I'm gonna be a little like, that
Well,
was
see,
really convenient.
here's the reason that, because I also did have like a moment, like one, the shock and awe of that explosion was sick.
I mean, it was much bigger than I think anybody thought it was going to be. When they cut to the top of the street, and you're like, "Whoa, this
Takes out a
is
city
massive."
block, bro. Like it was gnarly. Um, aside from the initial like damn and like that was awesome to see. I did have a moment of like being like a little bit annoyed. I'm like, bro, he just got like all this stuff like figured out and sorted. But I think that upon more reflection, the reason I'm more okay with it is because if, which I suspect he will be in this position by the end, like he is essentially the kingpin of Gotham, right? He will have no need for this dingy little underground operation area that he was running things out
Be
of. Like
back
he'll
in the
be in
44 below.
yeah, like exactly. Like he'll have the iceberg lounge. Like he doesn't need that. That will be literally beneath him, right? Like he doesn't need that. And so I thank you. Like and so I think that's what made me more okay with getting rid of it because functionally he wouldn't need it at that point. And so that made me more like okay,
Blow
like
up the apartment. I
yeah,
don't
dude,
know.
it wasn't their apartment.
I know, but it was like their base. You know,
for
it's
yeah
fine.
for a couple episodes, but no, I also have the moment of like, oh, that was kind of annoying a little bit, but no, I think that it's worth it for one, just the shots of him like crawling out of the rubble and stuff, killer. um and like having to, as you said, like now straight up face it head on and all of that, I think is great. um yeah, the bomb was super obvious. Oz, what are you doing? Like it's clearly a
Yeah.
bomb. Like get
It's
out of
like,
there.
what's going on, Sophia? I was like, let me tell you, Oz. Let me tell you
Yeah, dude.
what's going on.
Like I get it because like
And
heightened
then
emotions and
his hype,
stuff.
and then his like main guy's like, "What's going on, Oz?" And he's like, "I'm figuring it out." And I'm like,
And all those dudes are definitely dead.
"Oh yeah."
I love how you hear them
Oh,
being
we
like, "It's a
lost with
bomb."
one of his main guys got like iced
Shot
this
like
episode
5
too.
times. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, man, it's always sad when we kill off like the notable background actors.
Yeah.
There's a,
Yeah, his whole crew is dead, which sucks because they just like saved him like
but
30
Vic's
minutes
going to
prior.
get help.
Dude, also that is another thing that I think is super interesting. One, he's like not in this episode essentially. He has like 45
Yeah,
seconds. But then also the fact that Sophia left him, I'm not entirely, that seems like a really really big tactical error. Like unless there's a conversation that happened between them that we don't know
which
about,
right.
which is possible but I feel like unlikely. Huge
Maybe
tactical
she thought
error.
she killed him. Maybe
I
she
feel like
thought a
she's
crowbar to the head is probably going to kill this guy.
I love how much like everyone was making the like comparison of like her having the crowbar and like him, doing the Jason Todd thing of taking the tires, and everyone's like, "Oh, she's gonna beat him to death like the Joker," and like that did not happen. Like that was just
Oh,
not a
man.
thing. But yeah, he's just not in the episode. He'll come
Yeah,
back next week.
I have many thoughts about that too, which
Obviously, yeah.
in the
Like
speculation section. But
really
yeah.
interesting that he was just not present. I did love their exchange though briefly where he's like, "I'm sorry, Oz," and he's like, "Screw your guilt, like go do something," like, which was great. But yeah, that did lead to like where I thought the episode was going to go. Whenever he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to the other gangs and like have them save me," and where I thought that like the episode was maybe going to like where Oz was going to end up at the Falcone mansion and like the gangs were going to converge there and like we'd get
I think are still getting
go in there. Well, I
now. It
mean,
might happen at the movie theater now, but
yeah, but like that does seem
or the
we'll get
club or
into it.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's gonna happen.
I mean, yeah,
We're
because we
gonna have
know
our event, and then the Avengers Endgame portals are gonna open and outstep all the gangs and Doctor Strange.
yeah, on your left. No, I think that's that's most of the episode though. I don't think there's
Wakanda forever.
any other. Did you have any more favorite points before we
No,
drop into
it's all
speculation?
speculation. over here.
All right. So we're going to take a quick break, and afterwards, we're going to speculate on how we think the show will end. We'll be right back.
Hey, Aspect listener, I'm Robbie.
And I'm Alex, enjoying the show here on the Aspect Network.
Then check out Framing the Force.
We are your one-stop shop for all things in a galaxy far, far away. Each week, we discuss everything from the latest news and releases to the hottest topics in the fandom.
Beyond the films and series, we share our thoughts on every corner of the Star Wars universe, from comics to video games to collectibles and everything in between.
Join us every week as we discuss one of the greatest franchises in film history here on the Aspect Network.
Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Aspect Reacts. Before the break, we discussed some of our favorite moments from tonight's episode of The Penguin. And to cap off this episode, we wanted to discuss what we think is next. So, Sean, how do you think that this show ends? And I do want to emphasize show because I don't think we're getting a season 2. I feel
Yeah,
like
they also were like super clear in the teaser thing of like next week on the final episode of The Penguin.
That's a good point. I didn't even.
And
Yeah.
I was like, oh. I don't know, but I'm a little worried about it. Honestly, I
Interesting.
like. There's a lot left to do, and like I feel like this is a pretty notorious trend with HBO. Anyway, I remember
Mhm.
having very similar thoughts with True Detective season 4 as of
I still need
late.
to watch that.
House of the Dragon obviously similarly had some things, but they have a lot more to go through. Like that's not a singular thing. But mixed with like the teaser and just like what I think we're sort
Well,
of hoping we're expecting from the show. Okay.
next week's episode is an hour and 8 minutes. Pure
Oh, that's
episode.
good.
So,
It's good. It's good.
for comparison, this
We'll
week's
see.
was 46.
Yeah, this week's was short. We'll see. I think my main concern is knowing that it's probably like a singular thing and that obviously like all of these characters will not be a focal point in like the Batman 2 or whatever, with the opportunity for potential other spin-offs to happen. I guess I'm really only worried about Vic storyline. Not even as a character. Like you made a good point before the break just talking about his absence this episode, and I think that him killing Squid last week was really impactful for his character, but we haven't really quite seen him like commit. I mean, he's commit to like Oz, right? But like I think when we entered this show, we were like, we're about to see this really nice kid turn into a monster, and it's going to be really sad. And maybe he won't, and that's totally cool. But I think I would feel weird if the show sort of just ends with like, I mean, Oz and Sophia will get taken care of, and I'm sure they will leave the door open for Sophia if she is not killed next week, which rumors say she won't be, but I'm still not unconvinced because I trust most of those scoopers, but without naming names, the one that reported mainly that one, I'm about 50-50 on.
Yeah.
But like if next week ends with like Oz on top, which is probably what will happen in one form or fashion, and Vic's just like around, he's like, "Thanks, kid. I'm really glad you've had my back this whole time. Let's go rule the city together." I just don't think a character like Vic then makes it into something like the Batman 2. Because he's too big of a character now to the fans who are like diligent to just be like a background character.
See, I don't necessarily agree with that. Because I think that then just like adds to him being a background character. Because then you're like, oh, well, like he's then he's an elevated background character at that point. Like you
Just
get all.
not on this, but he's not. It's not like he. I think, but we've seen how they've used those types of characters. I think that like Bach and Kenzie are perfect examples of like these were low tier supporting characters, if you could even call them that in the first film. You recognize them in this one when they show up, and you're like, "That's cool." But if like we get scenes with Oz in the Batman 2, which I suspect we will,
Yeah.
and Vic is just like
Around.
around, I don't think it doesn't work the same in my opinion, which is just my opinion. But like, and I don't think something is going to happen to him either, right? Like I don't know what's going to happen with Vic. Part of me, God, I mean, part of me wonders if like he's earned his ability to leave. Like, well, they haven't really explored that with his character in a while. Like, that was a big falling out point between the two of them. Like, you know, I don't know. Their relationship has changed so much since like the first 4 episodes. And then they haven't had as much time together in the back half of the season slash show to like support, what I would like to see, or what to set expectations for next week. Um, but I mean, what's going to happen with Julian Rush? What's going to happen with his mom? Like
His mom's dead for sure.
I don't agree with that. See, now I don't agree with you.
No, she's dead 100%.
I think if she was dead, she'd be dead already. That's my take.
I don't. No, I think that she dies.
Okay. We'll find out next week, and then we'll talk about it. And I'm gonna be right again. I mean, obviously we'll talk about Sophia, and I'll let you sort of tackle sort of the stuff from the teaser. But I really walked away from this episode being like, okay, is Vic just gonna show up next week with the army, Avengers Endgame style, like we talked about before the break, and then like they're all gonna win, and then Vic is the new hunt, like number 2 to Oz.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's it. Like, I mean, there's room to always pick up his character later, right? Like, they set him up so well, and they've built so much for like what you would suspect his arc to be. And I just keep thinking about that, him killing Squid and the way that he feels about it. We haven't really gotten a chance to really like digest that with him. And, we don't really, didn't seem to be really like a pushing him over the edge thing where he like now is like fully committed. And I think he's committed to the lifestyle and to like helping Oz, right? But like he's still a really good person, which I think we were kind of expecting him to not be thinking that way anymore.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I spent a lot of time talking about this, but that's sort of my big question mark. And then I'll let you sort of take it where you want to go, and then I can always chime in with thoughts. But
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with the fact that I think that he is the biggest question mark in the finale, ironically, and like how his story will be wrapped up. I also don't really know how that'll go. I don't think that he dies.
Right.
I also feel like I don't think that he just leaves. So I don't know. Like it's an interesting thing. There's some other third option that
he becomes Mr. Freeze.
I feel like we're not seeing. So there's that. I think the stuff with the only thing that there's 2 things that I feel confident about with the finale. One, Oz being the Kingpin by the end, and then I also think that his mom is going to die. I feel very confident in both of those. Why are you shaking your head at me? That's
well, because we just talked about it.
That's 100% going to happen.
Okay.
Oh man, I hope that feels so
I mean,
bad.
I do think that you're right. Like, and you're right about the runtime, and HBO very rarely misses. There's just so much. Like,
No,
and
there's a
again,
lot.
it's from our own expectations, right? Like, we haven't been to the Iceberg Lounge or the 44 Below since like episode 2. Like,
Mhm.
are they going to come back to that full circle moment? Is that even going to be what it's about? Is it going to be about him and Sophia's mansion? Is it going to be about that? Like, is he going to let Sophia
Also,
live? Like,
the fact that
I
we're
like,
getting more flashback in the finale too,
that's a
which
great point.
I was not really expecting, but there is more of that in
Yes.
the trailer.
So much going on, man.
Yeah,
Too
I know.
much.
I
Too
do
much,
agree.
I would say.
There's a lot going on, but also like an hour and 8 minutes is almost a movie. Depending on the, yeah, like exactly. So like, there's a lot of time that they have there to like get into all of the things. And like I was saying at the very start of this episode, like if I know them and how they cut these trailers, I would venture to say most of the things that we see in this trailer are from really early in the episode. So like.
Yeah.
There's a lot. It's like a 60-second trailer. So we got an hour and 7 minutes that they haven't shown. So like, so there's a lot of stuff that can go down there, right? I do think there's a lot of different locations and a lot of different outfits that Sophia is wearing. Also, is something I know that she's rocking like 4 different outfits. I think in this little trailer. So there's that. showing like 4 outfits. I want to say there's like 5 to 7 different locations maybe that like
Sure.
show up in here, like, and so there's definitely a lot of ground that they have to cover, and I think that they will cover it. um I don't know how it'll all come together really. There's obviously going to be the confrontation in like the club or whatever that has the front that like looks like it's sort of a movie theater. It looks like the Monarch Theater is what it looks like, but it's
Yeah.
the Monroe Theater, or Monroe Club, whatever it ends up being, or whatever it is, because we did see it in this episode at the end, with Oz and his mom. But yeah, I don't know. I sort of share your reservations about like, well, they just got a lot of stuff they got to wrap up here because like this is the end of the show. But at the same time, like they've knocked it out of the park so far, and so I do feel really like I would feel misplaced in assuming that they'll drop the ball in any way. It's just like, it'll be even more impressive to see if / when they like pull it off and manage to pull all these threads together.
And the Batman will show up in the final.
Yeah, okay.
Final 15 minutes.
Yeah, sure. I think that's the third thing I'm 100% confident is going to happen in the finale is that Batman will not show up.
I agree with you, but could you imagine?
Oh, dude, it'd be insane.
Could you imagine?
I'd be insane. I'd lose my shit. Even if it was just Bruce. I would lose it more if it was just Bruce. Like if we saw Bruce in some public capacity, that would be crazy. That also though is not going to happen, but it would be gnarly. Because we're now like, I would say,
it's the freaking bat.
Because we're not like, by the time that this show ends, we're not even at Thanksgiving. So like it's not even been a month since the end of the Batman that this show covers. Like the show is like 3 weeks, like 3.5 weeks.
Maybe busy.
Yeah. I think he's busy trying to secure aid.
Did they go ahead, sorry.
No, because I just think he's busy trying to secure aid for. I think I talked about this last week briefly because it was a big talking point that I've seen with a lot of people online where they're like,
where is he?
Yeah, they're like, this is sort of a nitpick, but one of the things that's been bothering me is like, why is Batman not like in, like, what is he doing when all this stuff is going down? And like, all this shit is beneath him, honestly. Like, why? It's literally like, one, it's been like 2 weeks since the end of the movie. And also like all of this stuff is just like gang infighting that like doesn't genuinely concern him. Like, oh, what, the entire Falcone family is dead now? That's one less thing he has to worry about. Like that's just like, it's not something that he needs to get involved in. And then also
it kind of seems like it was below him in the movie.
Yeah,
like the only reason he was getting involved is because the Riddler was getting involved.
Yeah, exactly. Like so it's a weird thing of like being below him, but then also like he's focused on like the lowest denominator and that like he's just beating up random people. Like,
yeah, gotta save people from muggings, man.
Yeah, but like
divides and conquers.
So like, one, I don't think that any of this stuff really directly concerns him, but then also I do think that this universe is taking cues from No Man's Land, which Matt Reeves seems to be very influenced by, and the fact that in No Man's Land for a couple weeks to a couple months, I can't remember at the time, and I should have looked it up sometime in the last 7 weeks that we've been talking about this.
You got one more shot next week.
But in No Man's Land, like Batman is MIA at the beginning of No Man's Land for like a month or two because Bruce Wayne is trying to secure aid from the government to help Gotham. And so like I would not be surprised if that is something that Bruce Wayne is doing in this universe, because at the end of the Batman he realizes that like, hey, I can also help as Bruce Wayne. Maybe there's some stuff I should be doing here as well. I think that would fit really well. So yeah, that's why Batman's not around, by the way. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
I wish we got past Thanksgiving.
Yeah, but
now that you remind me again, I'm like, lots happened for 3 weeks to 4 weeks.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about it,
how it'll end. Maybe Oz and his mom and Vic will have like a big Thanksgiving dinner.
Man, that's weird to be eaten with a corpse.
Spider-Man 1 style.
Yeah. Okay.
They're all a family, you know, the new family, the Cobb family.
Yeah, and they'll bring out a pot of mashed potatoes, and now they're Cobb.
I do, yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna find out next week.
Yeah.
Anything? I mean, I don't feel spoiled on Sophia. I do think if I were to place a Vegas bet on it, I don't think she would make it out of next week. But we'll see if the Scoopers were right.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really because I don't know what she does. I mean, we talked about earlier that she might like end up doing something at Arkham is a possible thing. But her being like, I want to be free in this episode, like that's her main thing. Like she's like, I want to be done with this essentially. Like
I love the idea of I do love the idea of putting her and Selena in a room together though at some point.
oh, that'd be so
As
good.
daughters of Falcone.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be so good.
And maybe Matt Reeves was like, I want to do that now.
Yeah.
And so he's like, don't kill this woman.
I mean, maybe that'd be cool.
I also wonder if there's a world in which Oz lets her go. As I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
Like repaying for his sins of betraying her in the first place.
Yeah.
Letting her walk away.
Being like, all right, get
with
out of
Julian in the flashy red light.
here. Yeah. We'll see. I don't know. Lots of stuff's gonna happen.
We'll know in I can't do 24 times 7, but whatever that is.
7 days.
How many hours? Yeah. We'll know in 7 days. And you'll join us here for it. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
Nope. And it'll be like 166 hours roughly.
Great.
It's 168 is the total, but minus a little bit,
Yeah. Can't wait to see that and not talk to you at all in between them. All right, cool. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to The Aspect Reacts The Penguin. Alex, where can people find you online?
You can find me online at the Alex Batts. That's BATTS on both Twitter and Instagram.
Awesome. And please be sure to subscribe here to The Aspect on YouTube and any platform where podcasts are found. Follow us on Twitter/X, Instagram, and TikTok at The Aspect Co. Thanks so much for listening, and we will see you next time.